Cold comfort. Eragon looked expectantly to the sky. It was the last day of winter. Soon, the spring would cast its warmth and colors on the land, and the fields would finally come to life. At least he hoped they would. Mount Anga needed that. That winter had been hard, almost like the hardest one they had ever had, 5 years before. It was when the citizens were all trapped inside the mountain by the cruel weather. This one, for as straining as it was still manageable. They were stronger and wiser. Mount Anga had grown in a way he would have never thought it would. In the attempt to make the place self-sufficient, or at least strong enough to deal with most of its needs by itself, the mountain had become more than just a dragon hold. By the river at the docks, there was a true trading post, with a market, stables, a few shops, an inn, and even a tavern, where their own ale was sold abundantly to traders and travelers. On the other side of the river, it was possible to notice a few houses of those who worked at the docks or on the farms and didn't want to go back every night to the mountain. In fact, the hold was starting to feel small, almost insufficient for all its population. Therefore, expanding to the outside was only natural. Eragon and the elves were careful to evaluate each one of the new residents and cast protective spells around the area. It was a demanding work, and Eragon was happy he could count on the experienced help of the spellcasters. Otherwise, he would be lost, trying to control the growth in population by himself. The Eldenari provided a very welcomed vigilance around the land and alerted him, or blurred gum, when something seemed out of order. Crime and violence were concepts almost too vague in Anga. Still, Eragon worried. He worried, and sometimes he had to get away from the agitating life inside the mountain. He loved to work on the farms, especially the one he helped bring to life, such as the barley crops. Eragon would work side by side with Rainier and the human men and women, having dirt all over their clothes and hands, exchanging opinions on important and unimportant matters. Still, he worried. How could he not? His steps on the white ground by the river were muffled by the snow that had fallen through the night. In the morning, though, the sun had already started to melt the ice on the trees, and the droplets fell on his neck and back like a cold drizzle. Maybe the last day of winter had brought the last snow also. Who could tell? Happy birthday, little one. Saphira stepped out from her shelter where both of them had spent the night and came to touch his forehead with her nose. When Eragon decided to build a house by the river, near the hill, the first thing he planned on doing was the dragon shelter. It was a big stone dais, 7 feet tall, 50 feet wide, covered by a tall roof made of an intricate pattern of braided vines and leaves on a stone structure. Rainier helped him make it by hand, like he was doing with everything else. It took them several months, but they weren't on a rush. If someone had told him 5 years ago that his most rebellious student would become his closest friend, he would have laughed out loud until his belly ached. But there he was, flying on Vance's back, coming from the mountain just to aid his master and friend with the task of building Arya's gift. Thank you, Saphira. He scratched her chin. I'm excited to spend the day with you and work on the house. It was on a spring day almost half a decade before that the idea came to him from Rainier's lips, and it was the second big turn in their relationship. They had resumed their gardening work after much planning and studying over the great winter, as that terrifying season came to be known, when Eragon was asked about the hill. Rainier wanted to know why they were working there specifically, at the foot of the hill. It was a reasonable question. It's a special place. Eragon answered vaguely with a shrug. They were placing the last seeds in the ground to be sung to, like they were already doing to the older ones. But why? Eragon didn't want to say that it was because of Arya and the moments they had spent there. He had to admit to himself that he was afraid of the judgment, so he just tried to think of something, anything, that would ease the others' curiosity, but Rainier didn't give him too much time. What is the name of this hill? I don't think I had ever seen it on a map before. You wouldn't have. It's too small to be on a map of Alagasia. and it's newly named as Tealdari Hill. Rainier's eyes shot straight to him, and his hand dropped the bag of seeds he was holding. I thought the rumors weren't true. But they are. You and the Queen are mates. Eragon frowned, mostly for the rumors part, but also because of the uncertainty that was his situation with Arya. Of one thing he knew for sure, however, they weren't mates yet. We are not mates. What we have hardly qualifies as a relationship. And don't pay attention to any kind of rumor. Eragon tried to be severe and stop Rainier from speculating. How so? What do you mean you don't have a relationship? He grabbed the bag and restarted to work, although his attention never left his master. They were both crouched on the field, sticking the seeds in the soil. It's frowned upon. And only recently she was one of our own critics. He laughed humorlessly. You can imagine how difficult my situation is, seeing her only for a month every 10 years, trying to fight the adversities. She didn't want you. It wasn't a question, but a mean observation. True, but mean. I found out that she did eventually, for a long time, but didn't want us together. At least not yet. How about you? Rainier's incessant questions reminded him of himself indeed. Angela was right. I wanted her from the moment I first saw her. Eragon didn't see the other's reaction because he had to turn to reach a patch of soil to his left and Rainier was to his right, but he suspected that it was a big one. He turned back to see his student on his knees with a sad expression. Rainier was so much alike the humans he despised with all his unmasked emotions that Eragon wondered if he knew that in fact what we dislike in the others can also be found in us. He also wondered if the influence he feared Rainier had over Avelina wasn't as intense as the one she had over him. Certainly, Rainier was closer to be human than Avelina to be an elf. It was when she was being held captive in Gilead, wasn't it? Of course his story was in the world's history books. Everyone knew about the story of the young human rider who allied himself with the son of Morzan to save the elven princess. All the elves knew it. All the humans knew it. The people all over the land knew it. But it wasn't all. I didn't see her for the first time in Gilead. I saw her in my dreams first. Eragon saw a look of disbelief and a sarcastic grin emerge from Rainier's expression. He shook his head. You really are a poet. I read several of the poems you wrote, those in the library, and this is exactly what I would expect from you. A romantic remark. Eragon smiled. I told you, Rainier. If you only read about me, you don't get to know me. When I say I saw her in my dreams, it's exactly it. We made contact mentally, so I actually saw her. Eragon felt that that was the moment when his many layers started to peel off in front of his student. Sure, he had other students, but they only knew the teacher, for they didn't need any more than that. But Rainier, he was one of a kind. He needed familiarity. He needed to be in control of every situation, to know every bit of information. It was a tiring way of life, in Eragon's opinion, but it wasn't his job to question people's personality, only adapt. It must have been hard for you to be by her side without ever knowing if you would ever be with her. Empathy. That was new, and also a victory. They were getting closer. Eragon could feel it. Eragon spared him a sad smile. What makes you think I know now? He sighed happily the cold air by the Edda. Ever since him and Arya had become closer than friends, Saphira started to support their relationship without reservations. It was like she had tested the elf to see how much she was fit to be with her rider, and Arya finally was approved. Good. We will need your help immensely today, she hummed under his touch. Rainier and Vance landed near the pair, and the young elf dismounted. He rid Vance from his saddle and put it aside. Good day, masters. Hello, Rainier. Good day to you too. Vance, Eragon greeted. Good day, master. And happy birthday. The light blue dragon spoke in his mind. We brought a gift, Rainier said, and handed him a little wooden box. Eragon was surprised. He was used to receiving gifts, but usually people would give him items of first necessity, independently from the occasion. Estrith was the one that gifted him the most. She would sew him new clothes whenever she saw he needed to renew his wardrobe. Katrina, too, was very generous in clothing him. Even Rilvan would make him new pairs of boots or leather belts using his technique of working pelts he extracted from the dead animals he found in the woods. But this present didn't seem like a necessity. He thanked Rainier and opened the box. Inside, he found a gem. An emerald. It was the size of a walnut, and it was attached to a base made of gold that Eragon noticed worked as a brooch. It was engraved with beautiful patterns. It's a pair. You see, Rainier explained as he retrieved a package from the saddle bag. Rilvan made you this, he pointed at the package, so I thought I could work on something to complement it. Eragon fetched the package. He already knew what type of gift Rilvan would give him, so he wasn't surprised when he saw the leather belt made especially for him. He was surprised, however, by the level of detail with which the elf worked the leather. It had engravings of dragons and flowers, beautifully drawn. It had an empty space of 2 inches approximately where he figured the brooch went. Rainier approached his master and took the gem from his hand. He reached the belt and attached it to the leather, put it on. Let us see if looks good on you. Eragon removed his own worn-out belt and put on the new one. It felt great, comfortable and flexible, without feeling too fragile. Brissinger would be secure there if he needed to carry it with him in the future. It's protected by magic. It will always look new. The stone can never be removed from its place, and the belt can't be unbuckled by anyone else but you, Rainier explained. Eragon felt touched. Thank you. I really loved it. Rainier bowed his head. And I must thank Rilvan as well. His work on this is beyond beautiful. My gift to you is inside the gem, Master. Why don't you try to access it? Vance sounded proud. Curious, Eragon extended his mind to engulf the emerald, and he almost lost his breath when he touched its core. There was an enormous storage of energy, just as abundant or even greater than the one inside his ring Aaron, put there by Brom. Oh, he gasped. How long have you been saving your energy inside the emerald, Vance? Since the day I first heard about you, 7 years ago in Elismera. 7 years. It was nothing when compared to the time Brom had spent stocking his own energy in Aaron. What made Eragon think that Vance really applied himself to the task of providing his master with all that power. He was impressed by your story told by Queen Aria in our first lesson as Rider and Dragon. I had found this gem years before in my hometown and kept it. So Vance, without anyone teaching him how and without my knowledge, started to put his spare energy in it for you. Queen Aria said you could only defeat the egg breaker because of the energy lent to you by the others. At the time she didn't mention the Eldenari, for it's an advanced lesson. But all I wanted was to provide you enough energy so you won't need to borrow from anyone else if the time comes. My instincts told me how. I'm speechless, Vance. You're very generous and talented. Thank you. Eragon felt his eyes water. He was taken over by emotion. It was a great gift that he would wear proudly from that moment on. And it was only fitting the gem was an emerald. That way he would always have something to remind him and everybody else of her. It was Arya's color after all. Why don't you ask her to come live here? After all, being the queen and a rider at the same time can only bring trouble. Rainier was trying to solve his master's problem, as Eragon could see, between a seed and another placed in the ground. I asked her already. I believe I ask her this all the time. If not with words, then in other ways. She won't come. This is not her home, these, he indicated the mountain in the distance, are not her people. She won't come. Eragon repeated and lowered his head, looking down. Why don't you build her a place where she can call home then? Rainier said in a casual way, like it was so obvious. He was focused on following a perfect straight line with the seeds so they would grow in a harmonious formation. What do you mean? Eragon was intrigued. Well, you just said, a month every 10 years hardly qualifies as a relationship. What if she had a home to come back to instead of a temporary housing? Maybe you two would be able to establish a kind of a steady relationship, even if it's only once in 10 years. Eragon looked around. Do you think she would like to spend time here with me? His eyes gazed the area where his garden was coming to life by the river. Not too far, the crops could also be spotted, young and promising. I don't know her personally. For me, she is the queen and an elder, but probably, if you make it the way you know she will like. What does she like? Eragon smiled fondly. It was an easy task to tell what her likings were. She loves flowers, art, poetry. Everything that's beautiful. Like almost any other elf, Rainier mocked. Almost. Have you ever seen another elf being as direct and blunt as she is? She is not like any other elf. Rainier's smile grew larger and he raised his palms. Calm down. I am not trying to offend your queen. She is special, I understand. Eragon sighed and smiled a little. He was joking, but did he really know how special Arya was? Did the rest of the world know? Eragon had read the history books, and if they got several aspects of his own life wrong, about hers they were almost never right. Perhaps it was for the better, since her personality and intimacy were only his to know. It created a pleasant sense of exclusivity. Would you help me sing it to the trees? The house. Eragon sounded like a child asking for a new toy. Rainier displayed a cruel smirk. Only if I'm exempt from farming. I can't exempt you from your duties. This is a personal favor, not an official task, so I just thought you. Of course I'll help you. Rainier interrupted. I was just teasing you. Eragon smiled back. Thank you, Rainier. I appreciate it. You are welcome, master. He bowed his head lightly. Now, start planning the house. We have a queen to seduce. He was exhausted. Working the land around the tree where he was singing the house was a laborious task. Too many roots and frozen dirt. They had to stop the spell. Each time it would reach a rough patch of dirt and rearrange it. At least Saphira and Vance were there to dig the ground and stir the dirt, breaking and tearing chunks of wood and persistent roots. Rainier also suggested that they built a pipe system, just like the ones in Elismera that brought the water up to the trees, but Eragon was uncertain, for he wasn't completely educated in the elven building style. They decided to let it aside for the moment. The human way would have to be enough for now. Eragon's eyes started to feel heavy as he smoked by the fireplace. Saphira was already in the eyrie, so he would have to climb the stairs instead of flying to the top. Deciding to gather his courage to do so, he said goodbye to his companions and begun his ascent. He dragged his feet, but his exhaustion didn't cloud the feeling of accomplishment. Eragon was content for working with his own hands to build something beautiful. That was when he felt his necklace vibrate slightly and the hammer pendant warm up against his skin. Since he arrived in the east, he decided that the old spell put on the necklace by the dwarves were no longer ideal, so he changed it. Now, it warned him when someone on the other face of the scrying mirror intended to contact him, instead of avoiding the contact whatsoever. It was late at night, and he didn't have any scrying sessions scheduled for the day. That could only mean tragedy. He shot his mind up to Saphira. At the same time, he forced his feet to move fast. It was painful, but he blocked the ache in his calves and shins and kept running up the stairs as fast as his elven abilities allowed. Saphira. Who's scrying us? Is there a problem? She didn't express any emotion. I don't know. You better come see for yourself. That vague answer only made him speed up even more. When he arrived in the eyrie, Saphira didn't seem bothered at all, lying with her eyes closed on her cushion. Eragon, on the other hand, felt his heart jumping out of his throat. He got closer to the mirror, trying to catch his breath. Sitting on a chair on the other side was Arya, with a calm smile on her face. What's the tragedy? Why is she smiling if she's in trouble? Greetings, Shadeslayer. You seem a bit tired. Still breathing heavily, Eragon pulled a chair in front of the mirror and dropped himself on it. That's because I ran, she laughed. Her melodious laugh filled his ears with joy. So, what's wrong? He asked. Arya shook her head. Nothing is wrong. Why would there be something wrong? Eragon frowned. It's late and this is not a scheduled scrying session. I thought there was an emergency. No, no emergency, she smiled gently. I just wanted to congratulate you on your birthday. I apologize for the time, though. I didn't have a chance to do it earlier. Eragon was surprised again. What had happened that year that people suddenly started to know the date of his birth? Oh. I didn't know you knew about it. Roran told me. It made sense, of course, he smiled. You two have been closer now, that the bond between the people from the valley and the elves is stronger. Indeed. They are more welcoming of us since Avelina has been educating them. I'm glad. He was as proud as someone could be. Avelina and the people under her tutelage were the proof that education works, and magic is just a detail for a strong and well-educated mind. So, how did you celebrate your special day? Roran told me how it used to be in Carver Hall, when either of you had your birthdays. It sounded like a lot of fun. Remembering those days was both a joy and a heartbreak. He missed his days as a carefree boy, walking around his little town with dreaming eyes. Sure, he was poor and struggled for survival, but that didn't take away his reasons to be merry, living a simple life. Those were good times. But I'm not complaining about today. It was a good day. Saphira, Vance, Rainier and I worked on something special to me all day long. He gave her a mysterious grin. Really? Is it the garden? I would love to hear more about it. She tried to control her curiosity, but failed. In 5 years you will. And you will see it as well. Arya frowned. 5 years. That's not fair. No, it wasn't. It was the most unfair arrangement someone had ever made in the entire history of civilization, he thought. But it was all that they had. When he opened his mouth to speak of it, a memory entered his mind. It was Glida infusing his thoughts in Eragon's. He saw a baby. An elven baby, being held by Oramis in the crags of Telenair. The child was crying as Oramis swayed his own body back and forth. I guess I'm not made to parent a child after all. Don't be silly, Ryder. No one knows how to do it until we have to. The voice was coming from a male elf. He was tall and regal. Eragon recognized him from the many memories the dragons showed him. It was King Evander. And the baby was Arya. Maybe so. But I'm glad you came to visit us. Oramis handed the child to Evander. Since her birth, I'm willing to hold her in my arms. It's such a joy to have a child coming to this world. The king bared a proud smile. It's my pleasure. But you could have come to us if you wished. At the sound of her father's voice, Arya opened her bright green eyes and stopped crying. It was like she was attentive to Evandar's words. I didn't want to bother. Besides, it's spring. There's a lot to do around the forest. I've been busy. You and Glida won't ever bother us. But you are right. There's no busiest season than this. How curious is that her birth happened on the first day of spring. His proud smile grew larger. Oramis couldn't help smiling as well. Perhaps Arya is the hope we needed after all, Your Majesty. Eragon focused his eyes back on the mirror. Arya looked at him with a mix of curiosity and concern. He grinned gently to ease her spirit. Another memory, she asked hesitantly. He nodded. A good one this time. You never said you were born on the first day of spring, Arya. I guess I owe you congratulations as well. Arya widened her eyes. How do I? Happy birthday, Arya. She took a few seconds to take it in, but eventually relaxed and smiled back at him. Happy birthday, Eragon.